Thoughts on the German election drama today? I saw a little bit of it. I don't think anyone expects that the conservatives are going to do a good job, like wrangling the AfD or governing in general. You know, I mean, it's not really surprising to me that they're getting jerked around like that. Did Merz f up? I saw his name mentioned. Well, he got blown the f out in the first Chancellor vote, right?
Bevor die Gratulationen losgehen, bitte ich Zurückhaltung, weil der gewählte Kanzler die Wahl noch annehmen muss.
That's true.
Ich frage Sie, Herr Abgeordneter Merz, nehmen Sie die Wahl an?
Frau Präsidentin, ich bedanke mich für das Vertrauen und ich nehme die Wahl an.
No candidate for Chancellor in post-war Germany had failed to win on the first ballot, but Merz, 69, was 6 votes short, winning just 310 of the 316 required to secure a majority in the lower house of the Bundestag. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I mean, nobody actually likes Merz, right? Like, there's not actually any real momentum towards the German conservatives. The momentum right now is towards the Nazis, the AfD. You know, Merz just winning. He's just like a holdover. I mean, he's just sort of the institution. Nobody likes him. No left party in Germany. I mean, there's Die Linke, which has grown in prominence lately, but not enough. And then there's the Social Democrats, who are basically neoliberals. But not really, no. What happened to Die Linke's momentum? Well, you know, things tend to pick up right before an election, but it seems like since then, at least to my knowledge, things have stalled a little bit. Right now, the momentum is still towards AfD.
All right, overseas, Germany's Christian Democrats, the nation's center-right party, has won that country's federal election. The party's leader, Friedrich Merz, is likely...
It's an older video. Where Trump effect? Not as much Trump effect over here. We're seeing it in a bunch of countries, but we're not seeing it here. Not really. The election was a little too early, and unfortunately, the parliamentary dynamic is a little bit different over there. You know, a lot of ground has been capitulated to the Nazis. Also, just there's not really any like liberal pushback, right? Die Linke is small. The Social Democrats are not willing to or able to meaningfully capitalize global fear against Trump. To be fair, weren't we saying Germany avoided the worst outcome because the AfD didn't steamroll? Unfortunately, since then, the AfD has only gotten more popular. As you can see, since we're only just out from the last federal election, there's not much data to go off of, only a few months. But you have the Green Party, Die Linke, and the SPD all holding like pretty much exactly where they are. But the conservatives, the Union, has gone down and AfD has gone up. So depending on what poll you're looking at, the AfD is the most popular party in Germany. Certainly it's neck and neck. What's your opinion of social democracy in general? Mostly that it's cowardly. Social democracy mostly seems to exist because liberals capitulate to the general logic of socialists, but aren't willing to actually commit to the underlying, like, class conflict, I guess, like, reconciliation. Like, basically the argument is like, okay, well, we acknowledge that capitalism is deleterious to the working class, the imbalance of power, etc. But rather than, you know, abolish the class distinction, what we're going to do is endlessly capitulate and compromise and try to, like, you know, redistribute, right? Like, we're essentially, it's basically like, what if rather than having a democracy, we kept the monarchy, but we had like 78,000 rules in place that made it so the monarchy had to be like nice to the peasantry, which you know, I mean, certainly it's better than the monarchy not being nice to the peasantry, but historically there's a reason why social democracy and modern, like, social democratic parties used to be socialist parties. They capitulate, they buy into the system, they reform from within, and then eventually they become, you know, little bitches. Unironically, SPD? Yeah, unironically, all of them, dude. The British Labour Party? It's like all of them. It's like, it's what happened. Like, all of these European social democratic parties have their roots in actual, like, revolutionary socialists. It's So what, do you think revolution's the only way? No, not necessarily, actually. I just think that I think it's theoretically possible to reform your way into socialism. Like, good luck, right? But theoretically, but you need to be gunning for socialism. The moment you stop calling it socialism and you start being like, no, we don't want anything crazy like that. What we want, is much more moderate. We want social democracy. That's when you lose, right? It's almost as if the SP allied with fascists to shoot revolutionary socialists in the street. Well, yes. The socialists in Germany did make some mistakes leading up to that point, though. That was not the right time to attempt a revolution. Hey, that was actually long ago. Yeah, but like, what's changed, right? No, I know, Masaigu. It was a stupid idea. For sure. No, Force, I'm aware of the fact that the AfD recently got determined to be an extremist organization. I have no idea if that's going to lead to anything, though. People just don't get behind socialism, though, because it's been misconstrued and demonized. It's, in addition to being historically incorrect, it's also very defeatist. Socialist movements were extremely popular around, like, many Western European countries when social democrats were starting to, like, take rise. It's like the idea that socialism is just innately unpopular is ridiculous, ahistorical, and frankly, like, magical thinking. Why would that be? Like, fascism is the ideology that brought us World War II and the Holocaust, and yet it's a very popular ideology. It's quite popular right now. So the idea that, like, there's, like, an innate popularity, unpopularity to these things, it's about how you sell it. Of course, the bourgeois ideology is the prevailing ideology, so people are more primed to be anti-socialist than they are anti-fascist, especially these days. But they're also anti-social democratic, right? It's not like fascist propaganda spares the social democrats. To a Republican, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton are all communists. Doesn't mean anything. The fascists still don't call themselves fascists, though? Yeah, well, socialists can call themselves whatever they want. I don't really give a shit what they call themselves. They just need to be honest about their policy propositions. Heidi Reichnick recently said in an interview that Germany has to overcome capitalism, and when Jan van Eycken, I like how you're saying these names as though I know who these people are, said that, and when asked, Jan van Eycken said that democratic socialism is the proper alternative. Okay, yeah, but like, what do they mean when they say democratic socialism, right? The Linke leaders? Okay. Too bad no country in Europe has a Second Amendment type thing. We're fucked if they take power. Buddy, America has a Second Amendment type thing and it didn't do shit. Widespread gun ownership among the proletariat does literally nothing to stop totalitarian governments. Literally nothing. There's no effect on it. Like, that line of thinking is from 150 years ago, where the best technology both the government and people had was like a single shot rifle or whatever. That's not, it's not really relevant in the context of modern state suppression techniques. The only point at which that would become even like remotely useful would be in a full like collapse of civilization type thing, like militias, brown shirt, like that. That's an entirely different dynamic, Loud.
Welcome back. There is a new chancellor in Germany. In the last few minutes, Friedrich Merz has been formally confirmed in his position, but it has not been straightforward for the Conservative leader. He lost a confidence vote this morning. He was 6 votes short of the 316 vote majority that he needed. We are still to hear from Friedrich Merz. The result has only just been announced in the Bundestag. This was the second vote that was arranged hurriedly this afternoon. So let's cross live to our correspondent in Berlin, Jess Parker, and a sigh of relief all round, Jess, no doubt.
I'm referring to the gun owning part. People should be able to defend themselves in the state. No, I understand what you're saying in theory. It's just that in practice, you're like, it's LARPing. The relationship between widespread firearm ownership and the suppression techniques used by a modern authoritarian state, there's no intersection between them. Like, it's a Venn diagram where the two circles don't overlap. It has nothing to do with how cowardly or how brave you are. Yeah, like literally that myth of the Second Amendment was made up by gun companies to sell you guns. The reason the Second Amendment was the thing to begin with was because we were pioneers. Like, and there were like Native Americans we had to genocide and shit like that. And there were like wild hogs or whatever. I don't know. But like the idea that it was about fighting a tyrannical government, that's like a ahistorical myth that's been pushed by people who want to sell you a $200 fiber optic site. It's just not how it goes down,
Yes, so just broken here in the Bundestag. It looks like Friedrich Merz has made it through the second time around. What a fascinating and chaotic day it has been. To refresh people's memories.
Asymmetric warfare is a thing, liberal. Yeah, shame it's never been practiced in any modern democratized first world country ever in all of human history on Earth. I'm just saying, like, listen, we're not talking about like the Viet Cong here or whatever. Well, the Viet Cong were like a real military. I'm not, we're not talking about like the Taliban working along, or like the Mujahideen or anything like that. We're talking about like gun ownership in America. We're talking about white picket fence shit, okay? That's not the dynamic. I defend the Second Amendment in the U.S. because I don't want conservatives to be the only ones that own firearms. But the idea that it has anything to do with defending yourself against the government during like a crackdown or anything like that. It's just not. A lot of bad governments fall because of mass protest in the military. Note how those two things are distinct. Like the military, comma, mass protest. Those are two distinct things. Mass protest signals social unrest. The military is the military. Trust me, you threaten the government a lot more with a general strike than you ever will with widespread firearm ownership.
This morning we were expecting Friedrich Merz from the centre-right CDU party to be voted in without much fuss because he had a coalition, supposedly with the majority, and then the result came through, bam, he hadn't made it through. He was 6 votes short of a majority. There's been endless speculation as to how that happened, which disgruntled MPs from within the coalition might have dissented. But then there was a lot of conversations going on behind closed doors. They went for it a second time, and it seems that whoever decided not to support Friedrich Merz the first time around, well, a few people have changed their minds, and he has made it through. But a hugely embarrassing day for Friedrich Merz. He has been trying to project strength and certainty, this antidote to the last divided government. Nope. This is not how he wanted to start his term in power.
What does it mean he lost the confidence vote? Even though he theoretically had the coalition necessary to secure the chancellorship in a single vote, he didn't, because enough people voted against him that he needed to go to a second vote. It hasn't happened in Germany before, at least not since the fall of the Third Reich. It makes him look quite bad. Which, to be fair, yeah, like no one likes him. He's just kind of like the leader of convenience, I suppose.
And I think it has made him look politically weak.
This was the first time a would-be chancellor failed to secure a majority in 76 years of the German Republic, Jess. It's not the ideal start, as you say. If he is now to form this new cabinet and take over, is he weakened by the loss of that first vote today?
Yes, so as you say, it is not exactly how they wanted things to go today. Friedrich Merz was already supposed to have gone to see the president, come back to be sworn in.
Merz is excellent on Ukraine, though. Yeah, but that's the problem, right? Like, it is a problem in Germany, which is effectively the defense capital of the European Union. I mean, it's the capital of the European Union, basically, to, like, being real. For the, Ukraine's most stalwart warrior to be an ailing, unpopular conservative who is losing ground against Nazis, right? Like, it's not good that that's the direction things are taking.
In, as you say, he was lined up with his cabinet, members of his cabinet. Yesterday I was there at an event here in Berlin, an old gasworks building, that they were signing the coalition deal from different members of the different parties to say that they had come to this agreement, and it all looked like it was going to go very smoothly. I think a question now, though, for Friedrich Merz is, he struggled to get through as Chancellor, despite having, yes, a narrow majority in Parliament with this coalition, but a majority nonetheless. Does this mean he's going to struggle to get key contentious legislation through this Parliament? And
Macron is pro-Ukraine, Starmer is, Johnson was, lots of bad politicians. Yeah, because unfortunately being pro-Ukraine is the establishment position. It's like the obvious default Western hegemony, follow the line neoliberal position, you know? Russia, an enemy, is attacking Ukraine, threatening national sovereignty. We're going to pretend that we're like international policemen and that we apply these rules consistently. So we're going to defend Ukraine while ignoring what Israel does to Palestine, or Palestinians, I guess. It's like the default position. And you have to be like to the right or to the left to have any kind of issue with it, really. You have to be like diverging from the center. Now, I think the proper left argument is one for Ukraine, defending Ukraine. But there's no denying the fact that, like, support for Ukraine for a lot of these people has very little to do with ethics and a lot more to do with the military-industrial complex, contract procurement, defending Western hegemony, just general stability-oriented status quo stuff, that sort of thing, you know?
Also be the big question, as yet unanswered, because it's a secret ballot here. Who were these people who voted against him or didn't vote for him? Were they members of his own conservative CDU who don't like his leadership style? Remember, this is a man who took 3 goes to become leader of his party, so there have been lots of questions over his popularity within the party. Or were they figures from within the centre-left SPD, dissatisfied with their leadership or indeed the coalition agreement?
The fact that Delinka still refuses to support Ukraine is the reason I'm in the SPD. Do they not do that as well? Didn't just today the squad not vote in favor of a resolution condemning Georgia's government because they don't want to be like interventionist or something?
I don't know, but it's an uncomfortable moment for the new Chancellor. He'll hope to try and get back on track now. He's supposed to be whizzing off to Paris and Warsaw tomorrow as part of a big tour to try and rebuild frayed ties, as he sees it, with important European partners. But Paris and Warsaw will have noticed what has happened, and it's all pretty embarrassing for the new Chancellor.
Jess Parker in Berlin, thank you very much for that.
Delinka is pro-military aid, or sorry, against military aid, but is pro-economic aid. Well, we want the military aid, don't we? We do want the military aid. The military aid's pretty important. We do want that military aid. Give me a little more info. Give me a little more. I'm worried about Germany, aren't we all?
Of the basic law, he has not been elected federal chancellor.
Perhaps in a different format.
Friedrich Merz's bid to become Germany's 10th chancellor has failed in the first round of voting in Parliament.
I wish our politics were this boring again. Mate, the German chancellor lost a historic vote because of the increasing popularity of the AfD and other factors undermining his... Buddy, we're getting a repeat from 100 years ago, more or less.
Parliament, or the Bundestag, now has 14 days to elect Merz or another candidate chancellor with an outright majority. Joining me now is Oliver Farry from our International Affairs Desk. Oliver, perhaps a shock then in the German Parliament.
Yeah, it's more likely going to be a temporary setback for Friedrich Merz. He will probably have to do a little bit of horse trading to get the votes that will allow him to be chancellor, and of course let his newly named cabinet proceed. There are clearly certain factions within the parliament. I would wager probably quite likely. On
Delinka being fairly standard for a European left-wing party and being anti-rearmament. Do European leftists understand that by being anti-rearmament yourselves, you're effectively capitulating to the position of America as the world policeman? Like, as long as you guys have a subservient military, as long as you're like a bit player in NATO, your nation will always follow us in matters of international security. Like, I'm not advocating for mass, like, you know, everyone get nukes again or whatever. I'm just saying, like, in terms of, especially in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, like, the decision to rearm doesn't just signify MIC contracts, right? It signifies that, you know, the potential to depart from America's vision for what the world should look like. It'd be fine if we all got along, but unfortunately, we're, like, America's evil. I mean, I guess we all are, you know, nationally speaking. It's not like Germany gets a free pass or anything, but you get it. You understand.
The far right, the alternative for Germany, who will be particularly annoyed at German intelligence marking them in an extremist group just the other day, which is something that
I like that Voss struggles to conceptualize the EU left still has strong historical ties to the USSR. Mate, if you're going to spec into the like passive-aggressive snide response, you have to like make sure you're not saying something I've said 500,000 times. It's so trite and old at this point. Like, whenever I make that point, I feel like I'm coughing up spiderwebs and dust, you know? That's an old-ass meme right there. This has nothing to do with that. It's about being anti-militaristic. No, it definitely has to do with that. The Soviet Union had, like, maintained very strong ties to a bunch of leftist parties across Europe, across the world, really. And a lot of those parties kind of like, they had a geopolitical model which centered the United States as the bastion of global capitalism, right? Like the center, which is true to an extent. You know, you get a lot of American diabolism from people who, you know, irrationally believe that just because a nation's geopolitical interests oppose the United States, that must mean that they're like a better country, which is just obviously not the case at all. What are you going to do?